So we've got a good number joined now. So I think what we'll do is we'll kick off. Thank you for those that have joined. This is our latest HashiCorp snapshot. It's titled Implementing AWS Cost Management, Best Practices with Terraform. It'll be presented by one of our senior solution architects, so Moyad Ismail. And today, Moyad will be going over to show how to implement some AWS cost management, some best practices to eliminate some of those bill shocks. It'll also show you how to use Terraform Enterprise to help you put governance and control, particularly when you're looking at deploying resources within your approved budget sets. Before we start, I'd just like to go over a couple of housekeeping items. First of all, just to make everybody aware, this session will be recorded. The recording will be made available within 2 to 3 or 1 to 2 working days after the presentation, and you'll be sent an email link that you can actually then review this. It will also be up and go up onto our resources snapshot page. So today's demo will be about 16 minutes long, and to keep within that kind of strict time frame, we won't be taking any Q&A, but you do feel free to actually ask questions during the session, and there will be a moderator taking and answering those questions as we go. With that said, let's get going. Over to Moyad and for him to kick off. Thank you.
Sure, thanks, David. I hope everyone can hear me and see me okay. Thank you. Okay, so good morning, good afternoon. Thank you all for joining today. My name is Moyad Ismail. I'm a Senior Solutions Engineer at HashiCorp. Over the next 15 minutes or so, we will walk through how to implement AWS cost management best practices with Terraform Cloud. We will cover suggested workflows and some steps you can take using Terraform Cloud to take better control of your cloud spend. There is a lot to cover, so let's make a start. I'd like to begin by bringing your attention to the following figures. So 35%, 17.6 billion. If you were to make a guess what these represent, and if your guess is they represent cloud spend wastage, then you are right. Recent research highlights that the amount of wasted spend on public cloud services can go up to 35%, in some cases even exceeding that. We can all agree that this leaves a large opportunity to further optimize and reduce cloud spend costs. Over-provisioned or underutilized resources mixed with unclear cloud financial management practices is a major factor of this wasted cloud spend. So let us delve further into how these situations come about. We begin with an enterprise that has made a decision to partner up with AWS to enable their digital strategies. A cloud team is established and mandated to do some migrations and do some proof of concepts. AWS clouds, prod, non-prod environments are set up. The team is well on way and has successfully migrated some applications. The resources are well accounted for and the costs are within budget. So things have gone so well, a Cloud Center of Excellence team is established. It's a cross-functional team, and to set up some good practices and security governance. And some optimization was done along the way and costs go down. Then what ends up happening, so you end up with multiple applications teams that wish to migrate some of their applications to AWS using a lift and shift approach. Now, in collaboration with the CCOE team, some of these environments are established, all resources are accounted for, and costs are within budgets. Then what tends to happen, the enterprise wishes to enable some new services or products they wish to release to the market, which puts a lot of pressure to build new teams around it. These teams have high velocity where they spin up and tear down environments very, very quickly. And typically at this stage, the CCOE team is probably not well versed with kind of the speed and the required services. So what they typically do then is provide a whole set of new accounts with basic guardrails in place and hand over some access to the teams to begin deployment of their applications. Now, due to the pressures of the delivery, little consideration to the costs associated with these resources, the focus is on delivering products. Now, this could result in unanticipated high costs. And when the invoices come in, you kind of end up with this, leadership, all of a sudden you got the attention of the leadership team. You have, finance knocking on the door saying, hey, we got this invoice. It's much, much higher than what we anticipated. And typically what ends up happening, the request goes to the CCOE team to kind of distill or provide insights to how these costs came about and how they get kind of carved out and allocated, right? So the challenges that come about from having a lack of cloud finance management processes in place, you end up with questions, lots of questions around, hey, who deployed these resources? Do we still actually need them? Cost attribution, who needs to pay for this? Idle resources, you deploy something, you forget to turn it off, or basically you get too busy, caught up with other activities and haven't had the opportunity to turn off servers that are running in your dev environment that are running all week. Over provisioned resources. Do I really need 8 core CPU to run an application that only consumes 10% of average CPU, right? So basically not having a sound cloud financial management practices in place can have considerable impact on the organization, specifically around having underutilized resources and which result in increased costs. Slows down innovation, because a lot of these questions say, hey, why is it so expensive to run things on cloud? We're kind of firefighting all the time. And also ultimately slowing down cloud adoption, right? So let's take a look at, now that we've kind of described how the cost management issues come about, let's discuss what AWS's prescription around best practices look like. AWS has actually released a white paper that describes these best practices. We'll cover them very quickly. Starting from top left, resource control is all about workflows. How do you govern who can deploy resources and the process for identifying, categorizing the resources that are deployed, right? Cost allocation. Now, all users of cloud should have a responsibility to the costs associated with its use. So moving to a shared responsibility mentality, putting the message out, making sure people are accountable and responsible for the costs they generate. Budget process. How do we allocate budgets or create budgets, cloud budgets, review the budgets and track against the costs of cloud. Tagging and tagging enforcement. This will be a key theme. AWS tags allow you to ensure the tracking and visibility of deployed resources very effectively. Architecture optimization. There are instances where it may actually be cheaper to redeploy an application from a VM to a serverless architecture, as an example. So having more cost-conscious thinking around the architecture of application. We will be focusing on 3 specific kind of best practices. These are resource control, budget process, tagging, and tagging enforcement. So typically, usually when stakeholders, once they realize there is a problem with inflated invoices that come through, usually stakeholders would get together to develop a cost management plan, and concluding with some business rules that need to be communicated and in some cases enforced in the cloud provisioning workflow. In this case, we will cover the following kind of controls. One is around governance. We wish to enable enforcement of mandatory tags. All resources, supported resources, need to have mandatory tags applied to them. We need to be able to check budget alerts. How do we enforce budget alerts to be attached to every type of deployment so the user has insufficient time to react? Also, check suitable instance size. We want to control the instance size that's deployable in certain environments. For example, in dev environment, which we'll touch on in the optimized section shortly. Guide developers to self-service. If a developer is non-compliant for whatever reason, they haven't met all the requirements, they're able to help themselves to be compliant and be able to deploy. We also want to standardize our provisioning workflow in this regard. Give visibility is very important. Without giving the end user some form of data or a trigger, you cannot expect them to react accordingly. So this is where we have the requirement to, all deployments will have budget notifications configured with, once you hit a threshold of 80% of actual spend, I require a notification. All right. And in regards to optimize, the organization has agreed that for dev environments, you must only use specific families of EC2 instance types. These are T2, T3, and M5 families. The largest size that's allowed is the X large instance. And also we wish to enable the option for developers or people deploying infrastructure to enable automated shutdown of EC2s at a specified time. So for us to do all of that, here's a kind of a high level view of all the moving parts on Terraform Cloud. So let me just take you through it very quickly. Over here, we have the Terraform Cloud, Terraform Workspaces. Workspaces is how Terraform Cloud organizes and manages a collection of infrastructure resources. And this workspace that I will be deploying into is currently tied to a GitHub repository, which contains all of my Terraform code, right? Terraform configuration files. We also have a cost estimation feature that's really important here, which allows us to Terraform during the plan. It will provide an estimate of the cost estimation of the resources for a month, if they were to run for a whole month, in your Terraform configuration file. So it kind of gives you an idea of what to expect in terms of if you were to leave these resources up 24/7. Sentinel policies is very important here. This is where we're going to build the policies that will govern how deployments are done concerning cost management processes. Okay, so Sentinel, if you're not sure what Sentinel is, it is our embedded policy as code framework integrated with our HashiCorp Enterprise products. In terms of what we will deploy, very straightforward. We're deploying a VPC, some subnets, and an internet gateway and the application server with an AWS budget to be used for generating notifications with when thresholds are met. One thing I haven't touched on, sorry, is the private module registry. This is an easy way for an organization to share Terraform modules for developers and consumers of Terraform. So with that in mind, I just wanted to note, it's very important to turn your cost allocation tags to do it in your own environment. This is done on AWS in the AWS billing. With that in mind, I'd like to switch gears and go into a demonstration. Bear with me while I switch screens. Okay, what you can see right now is I'm logged into Terraform Cloud. And as you can see, as a developer, I have access to managing 2 workspaces. One has already been deployed, which is great. I've put in a request to the CCOE team to provision me a brand new workspace. Now, if we have a look at the details of this workspace, it's tied up to a repository. That's great. And as you can see, there's nothing run yet on this workspace. However, one thing to note is the CCOE team has actually provisioned me with all the tags that represent this workspace. For example, the team, the notification of when a budget alert needs to be sent to, the limits, the budget limit for this workspace, what project it belongs to, the environment, so on and so on. So these tags are actually very important to identify this deployment. So we're going to, what we're going to do right now is run queue a plan to do the actual deployment. So I'm ready to go. As a developer, I will take you, so currently I will take you through what a plan looks like. As you can see, I've done the trigger manually here through the queue plan. It's fetching the code from the repository. The plan will introduce 13 new resources. That's fine. And here's the cost estimation. It's currently being queued. It will take a few seconds for it to run. Here we go. So cost estimation, it's telling me that I'm up for $240 per month of cost. And it's based on the instance. Now, if you have a look, I have failed some compliance checks. Now, as a developer, I need to fix these before I'm able to push deploy the environment. So let's go through each one. And luckily, there's some guidance to what I actually need to do. So I'm going to check this policy. And it's telling me that the tags, there's some mandatory tags, so environment, project team, cost center, and workspace. I'm missing one of them. So I'm going to, this is Visual Code. It has all my resources in there, my Terraform configuration file. As you can see, here is the instance, and project is commented out. So I'm going to uncomment this. And now I've provisioned for that tag. So I think I've addressed this first one. Let me have a look at this policy check. So it's asking me to check for EC2 instance type. It's not conformant. Let's have a look at that. There is a description. The policy checks for allowed EC2 instances in dev environments. I can only use T2, T3, M5. Okay, I think I've used one of those. However, the failure is due to the AWS instance is using 2x large. Now, because I'm doing 2x large, that's not authorized. So I need to go back and fix that up. So instead of 2x large, I'm going to do x large. So that's fine. I think I've resolved this one. Now, the budget private module registry, I need to add this module so I can be compliant. Now, if I have a look at what that looks like, it says here the policy checks for use of budget module. Please add a workspace budget module. Here is the link. So I'll get that link. And this will take me to the private module registry. As you can see, there's a general guidance on how to use this module. This one will just send a threshold of 80%. It will send a notification once that forecasted value is hit. I'm going to make things very easy. I'll just use the default settings. And I'm going to add this module down the bottom of my configuration file. And then lastly, let us resolve this one. This is saying there is a scheduler module that needs to be enabled because it's in the development environment. And the scheduler module allows users to shut down EC2 instances in the development environment. So I'm going to, I can just search it here. So modules, scheduler. Here we go. Here are the details, and I'm going to use the stop action and for EC2 instances. Now, these modules are available in the Terraform registry. You can use them in your own environment. So I'm going to do that, and it will stop at 8 p.m. So I think I've resolved all the issues. So let's see what happens. I'm going to commit my changes. Now that we've pushed our updates, it will actually trigger a plan on its own. As you can see, it's now triggered the plan based on the trigger from GitHub. And now it's going through the same checks again. And let's see what the result is. So 27 resources now. The cost estimation, I'm expecting it to be a little lower because I've chosen a different instance size, a smaller instance size. Here you go, $119, that's expected. And all the policy checks pass. So now I have the option to apply, and I can push through with that. So I'll just confirm the apply, and now Terraform Cloud will actually push out or build that infrastructure into AWS or into the nominated account. Just to show you a very quick view of what a budget looks like. This is for an existing deployment. It will look something like this. So you get, like in AWS budgets, you get a created budget. And if you click into it, there's a threshold of $100. And currently it's at $61 of charges. Once it hits 80%, here's the threshold. it will trigger a notification to the nominated email address. Okay. So we've been able to demonstrate with this that the effectiveness of putting these controls, making it very easy for developers to use and resolve. We're able to now cater for all the costs, ensure the tags are in place, and we should be able to account for all the resources. That's all I really wanted to show you in the demonstration. Back to you, Dave.
Thanks, mate. Really interesting, and I think something that people are really showing a lot of interest and a lot of questions with. So, thanks for that demonstration. If you do have any more questions or want to contact Moad, please feel free to reach out directly and add in his and reach out to anyone at the HashiCorp team to answer anything around the Terraform and Terraform options. It brings us to the end of this session. I do want to mention again that this session was recorded. The recorded will be available soon and will be up on the website again. So if there is something that you want to review or look at again, please feel free to visit. If you liked what you learned today, there is more options available on the Learn site. There are some actual hands-on examples that you can follow around Sentinel and Sentinel policies. There's actually a hands-on terminal that you can drive some of these options there as well. And with that said, big thank you to Moad and everyone helping. And with that, we will end today's presentation. Thank you, everybody, and goodbye.